Back in my early 30s, I worked in transportation as a trucker in my home state of West Virginia. Sometimes we'd only spend so much time on the road, and that's if work opened up for us half the time. We'd pretty much end up just doing whatever we wanted with our spare time. However, when we were driving, we were on very tight schedules and had to be at our destinations in a timely manner. While it may seem like a chill job, it was sometimes stressful when you're driving for 11 plus hours out of the 4+ years I've been a trucker. I've definitely encountered some weird experiences while on the road. These ranged anywhere from weird people when delivering goods, and even a few people out on the road who were clearly drunk. In other words, nothing too bad-devered in terms of danger. There was this one time, however, where I saw something absolutely unexplainable during one of my trips. If I can remember correctly, it was a Tuesday night, and I'd been doing my usual routine of driving a full 10 hours to haul some items to a facility. I was driving down this long road somewhere in Ohio that stretched across the state. The road that I was on was very long with a forest on both sides of it. It mainly DOS shifts near the woodland area, so it wasn't uncommon for me to be driving on routes like these. It was surprisingly quiet on this road, as there were no other vehicles nearby, which made for our relaxed drive. It's around 4 am around the halfway mark to my destination when I see a red rubber ball come bouncing in the front of my truck from the woods. Naturally, I slam my brakes while yelling a no crap, coming to a complete halt. As I stopped the truck, my mind began racing about what the hell I just saw, and what I should do at this point. I'm 99 certain that there had to be a kid playing out here, and that's when I stepped out of my truck to give the person a piece of my mind. As I get out, I then see that the road is completely empty. I was seemingly the only person on this road, and there wasn't anyone around who could have thrown that ball. However, that's when I remembered where the ball was thrown from, and where I was at that point. I knew there had to be someone in those woods who threw it, and I was definitely not going to stick around to find out. Mind you, I'm far out from the nearest towns, so there weren't any houses around for miles. I get back into my truck and floor it down the road, with all these questions and scenarios flooding in my head. In that point in time, I wasn't sure if the person who threw that ball was a kid, or if someone purposely did that to make me get out or meta some trap. That scenario still sends a chill down my spine whenever I think about it. As I'm driving off, I could have sworn I saw a figure emerge from the tree line and onto the road. However, they didn't look like a kid, and they definitely weren't some animal, because it was so dark out I couldn't see their features or face, just a tall black silhouette standing in the middle of the road. Long story short, I completed my shift that night and pretty much told my fellow truckers about it. A few at event told me that they've had similar experiences while en route. I've had a few other weird encounters, but this one definitely takes the prize for whatever reason. This story still sticks with me while driving, as it's something I can't seem to forget till this day. I always wonder how everything would have played out if I had gone into those woods to look for anyone. One thing is for sure is that I never took a route on that road again. This took place around 5 years ago, back when I worked as a trucker for an independent contractor. It was a really good paying job, where I made enough to financially support myself and my family, while I might have had great pay and benefits. There were times where us truckers had to encounter and deal with things we didn't want to. Many of these things included rude people you'd meet and constant hours of driving and stress, to be exact. This happened during the winter of 2018 at around 8 p.m. I had been assigned a specific route to deliver some manufacturing items to car dealerships that were located in isolated areas. These areas included towns, districts, and other small settlements that were away from big cities. These were the types of places that were located in the more rural side of the state that needed supplies, which is mainly what I did for most of the time. Anyway, I had been driving on the roads trying to be extra careful, as the roads were slippery due to the ice. After all, it was snowing heavy out there, and I wasn't about to have a full-on rollover mid-drive. I noticed the tank was low and that I had to eventually get fuel. Thankfully, there were several truck stops along the roads, so it wouldn't be much of a hassle jetting fuel. In about 20 minutes, I pull into a truck stop and get out and proceed to pump fuel. Now, each trucker was provided with a fuel card issued by the company, which basically pays for the fuel. As I'm waiting, I then see Eamon walking in circles around a small building to my left. He's pacing back and forth while looking up at the sky with his hands in his pockets, not seeing a word. Looking back, it kind of looked like what someone would do when they're thinking or brainstorming ideas. I think nothing of it and sent to my phone as I wait for the truck to fill up. As I'm waiting, I then see from the corner of my eye the person stop and begin to slowly walk over to me. Looked nothing like another trucker or employee, but rather someone who you would think is homeless. This station was practically in the middle of nowhere, so it didn't make any sense as to why this person should be out there. He approaches me and asks me for money in a very entitled manner. I tell him that I'm in a rush and that I had to get back on the road, hoping he'd get the hint. However, it didn't seem to work, as she insisted that I'd give him money. Being the nice guy I hand him a $5 bill, just hoping he'd take it and go away. That thankfully seems to do the trick. As she then walked into the store and walked out with a cigarette pack, it was annoying, but the truck was almost ready where I would then be able to drive off once it was full. I decided I'd grab a quick coffee from the shop to just keep myself awake when I came back out. However, the man was nowhere to be seen, which I didn't really mind. I get into my truck and pull out of the station and back on the road. I'd say right then I began to feel really tired, even while sipping on my coffee. However, the destination was only an hour away, so I figured I'd make it in time. Fast forward about a half hour later. I'm still driving, just wanting my shift to end, when I feel a cold hand grab my face from behind. This caused me to swerve off the road into the snow, where I eventually got out, pulling the same man out of the truck from the station. I'd say the fight was over in a matter of seconds, with me delivering several blows to his head. He then got up, by instead of fighting he just ran the opposite way, disappearing into the snow. It took that time to get back in and floor down the road, where I thankfully made it to the destination, where I called the police. The only problem was that the road I was on was in the middle of nowhere, so the chances of fighting him again were slim. I continued my trucking career for another 2 years after that, and then went into work on an oil rig. It's safe to say that I've never experienced anything like that again, but as far as I know, these incidents with truckers aren't isolated. I've heard several stories from truckers that would make you not want to leave your house anyway. That's my story, and I hope you'll learn to be aware of your surroundings. My name is Jim, and I've spent a lot, and I mean a lot of time on the road as a trucker ever since trucking school. I've been driving long distances for hours every day, and even with benefits, the pay wasn't the best. Well, it did pay enough to financially support me and my wife. The stress it had on of me was unbearable. Being in a truck for hours at a time really forced you to make sacrifices. Once in a while, I'd miss out on family events like birthdays and even holidays, which didn't feel good at all. On of that, America is in desperate need for truckers to keep up with demand, which made the situation even worse. I drive for about 12 hours a day, and we couldn't stop for any reason until we reached our destination. Needless to say, I barely had any time with family. One night, I was doing my nightly routine of driving to a warehousing complex to deliver some products for major retail businesses like Target and Best Buy. I was somewhere in a rural area of Wisconsin on this long empty road that stretched across the state. It's around 6 a.m. I'm sipping my coffee, trying to keep myself awake. Being a full-time trucker, caffeine was your best friend. If you didn't have it, you were in trouble, Souther. I'm driving down this road, trying to keep myself awake, when I see something big walk across the road from my headlight. Yell to no, while practically slamming my brakes, coming to a complete stop, the while I'm cussing to myself, thinking that I just hit a person or possibly a bear. Going back, at first, I did think it was a person, but then I remembered that whatever it was massive, 9 feet tall, a bulky body, and the movement it was walking looked abnormal. I stepped outside of the truck with my gun in hand, going to where I saw it. To my surprise, however, there were seemingly nobody on this road, nobody walking nor roadkill, nothing. The only thing I did see was faint tire marks on the road from me hitting the brakes too hard. I call out for anybody who might have been nearby, but got no response, other than the sound of wind picking up and the truck engine. I get back inside and continue my route, managing to finish it within a few hours, but couldn't get what I had just seen off my miter that same day. I call up one of my other fellow truckers and tell him about what I had just seen on the road. It turns out that he had experienced things that were similar, and that it was likely a hallucination, given that I was tired. Thankfully, I have a camera that sits next to the interior, and was thankfully able to capture a brief second of this creature before it went out of frame. The photo will be on screen now. As you can see, the camera quality isn't that great, but it was likely due to the condensation on the front windshield, because it was a single road with a forest on opposite sides. There was a pretty good chance that it was an animal. My only question is, what kind of animal 9 feet tall walks on 2 legs? I don't know if it was a person. I don't know if it was Bigfoot. One thing I do know was that I wasn't imagining it.